Hey everybody, Dispatch hasn't really left my head for a good chunk of a while since the game has been over, and certainly has not left the minds of the people who have either played it or watched a YouTuber play it because they couldn't afford the game. In a world where people are starting to feel that the superhero genre did everything it can to stay afloat, such as in the MCU, or maybe James Gunn's having to pilot DC into a new direction, many new kinds of media have become popular enough to fill in that void and to very much explore these newer ideas that most of the already established ones really wouldn't be able to explore. Ones that come to mind are probably things like The Boys and its spin-off show Gen V and Invincible. They serve not only as a new way to expand how the standard superhero world can be told, but allowing endless creative ways to tell a story that has been done before, but show in a newer light. But where The Boys and Gen V are a deconstruction of heroes with a cynical mean-spirited edge with a hint of satire, and Invincible allowing its heroes to explore much more darker subjects, yet retain their optimism, Dispatch takes the best of both and creates something not only refreshing, but in a way that allows it to stand on its own. The story of Dispatch is about Robert Robertson, a honest, apathetic, dry cynic whose whole life has been consumed by superheroes from his family, becoming one in a generational line of Mecha Man. But after a bad defeat when trying to find the villain that killed his father, his suit gets damaged to the point that it may not be recoverable. He throws in the towel, but he gets scouted by the Superhero Dispatch Network to lend his hand on getting a team of reformed villains to become superheroes with the goal of Robert to become Mecha Man again. Now, I'm not going to pull from a Pyrocynical and detail everything that happens in the game. Promise, it's not going to take forever, but this is a Telltale game if you couldn't tell, and Telltale games are notorious for that the choices that you have to make do matter. And it was in collab with Ahawk Studios, as Dispatch was originally meant to be a television show. In fact, it was in production since 2018, meaning that it was in development for 7 years till late 2025. On the surface, Dispatch does a lot that fit within the typical tropes that you could find within many other superhero-like media. Themes of redemption, expectations, and the burden of legacy. But how they tell it is different enough. When going into the game, it's expected of everybody that they know all the kinds of hero tropes, and it drops you into this world and expecting you to just figure it out as it goes. It allows itself to have an edge and mock itself while respecting in what they are doing for the genre. This is not only with the kinds of heroes and villains tropes that you can find, but have newer twists to it that make it unique itself to its characters and how they interact with the world around them. People usually think that the tropes are kind of just a one-trick pony that writers have, either just to claim that they have no other ideas in their head, or it's kind of just the only thing they end up having to use. But Dispatch not only uses them, but tweaks it just enough that it doesn't ruin how the game's being told. It's able to tell its story, to be able to be as crude, as funny, and have tender moments that make it feel as if it was treated with actual care. And no trope is reinforced much more than with the Z Team, the band of reformed villains that Robert has to manage. Despite being a trope of reformed bad guys becoming heroes like the Suicide Squad, Creature Commandos, and the Thunderbolts, the Z Team feels authentic. They have a genuine chemistry with one another and are able to have banter, and you can grasp the kinds of personality that they have either from how they look or from their dialogue. As the game continues, they grow accustomed to each other's antics and try to better themselves in some way. It's a bit cheesy to say that they are a fucked up family that need each other, but it gets the message through without having to hammer it in. Additionally, Dispatch embraces a tone that blends comedy with seriousness. Rather than treating heroism as either grim, cynical, or over-idealistic, like in shows like The Boys and Invincible, it finds its humor within bureaucracy, miscommunication, and unintended consequences without undermining its stakes. This tone allows Dispatch to very much make comments about the superhero genre itself, acknowledging all of its absurdities while still respecting the core appeal, allowing the game to be self-aware without becoming too dismissive. To speak on the gameplay, unlike in all games where you're just bound to be constantly in battle, which, to be fair, there's some that you kind of have to be prepared for, unless you made it to where you can't interact with it and you just put on cinematic mode, that's also a choice. You lazy chud. The game focuses on your coordination of which heroes are fit for the call and how you need to deal with one. The Z Team is very much a fun group to see doing their own thing. While they were villains at one point, they all came to SDN to try and do some good for a change, even when they don't outright say it. They represent the themes of second chances, as they are canon online comics that do explain the reasons as to why some of the members join SDN, mainly for ones like Punch Up and Coupe, Sonar Malevilla, and Waterboy. Even when you're sending them on the missions, there's tons of dialogue interaction that you can even create synergy with some of the members. Not only that it makes the missions go smoother, but you can level them up even further. But just as you're starting to get used to seeing the team being able to succeed, you're left with the choice having to choose which hero you need to cut. The two that it gives are Sonar, an arrogant bat hybrid who is a Harvard graduate and a scammer, or Coupe, a merciless assassin for hire who takes her job professionally. From the sound of it, you may know who to cut depending on the stats you gave or one that you didn't think just outright deserved it. But it's a Telltale game, and they'll remember it, and they make you feel as if you could have picked a different option. Ironic that in a game where they're giving people second chances, the game has to force you to remove that chance from them ever again. On to SDN, it takes on after superhero organizations that have tons of heroes that can be called anywhere to solve a problem. And I do think that this is a much more better way of kind of making superhero organizations in general, because it's not like in Marvel within like, you know, the whole thing of SHIELD and like a massive organization like in the sky. It's a lot more on the ground of like treating it as an actual business with like multiple places around like multiple parts of the world, just in like specific parts of like cities, countries, and whatsoever. It is a subscription based service, sure, but it is a successful one that puts all the kinds of heroes to work to make them feel like they actually have to protect, do their service, and save their part of the city. In fact, SDN account also proves as to a in-universe reason as to why villains exist in this world. And that is the fact that like most people can work independently as an actual hero, but you're also sacrificing a lot of your own resources from it, meaning that to become an actual like hero, you would have to work with SDN. And being a villain, while it may be somewhat good, it's not exactly the best thing out there in the world, and it's probably as to why that some independent heroes became villains. Speaking of SDN, there are two people that you can recruit to become part of the Z team. Waterboy, a nervous, anxiety-riddled man that got stuck being the janitor for SDN, and Phenomenon, a confident yet misguided hero that is struggling with his depressive thoughts. Either one that you choose is fine, but it's also in keeping with the theme of Dispatch to not only show that villains can get a second chance, but even those that aspire to be a hero are internally struggling in the hero position, and are in ways of trying to give themselves a chance to prove that they can still be a hero, just not in the way that they originally thought. The writing in this game is honest, witty, but it has this feeling of hope and melancholy that often mixes one another, as the dialogue allows a lot of these superheroes to feel relatable. They're all struggling with something, but they keep going on, hoping that something out there will make their hero work feel like it means something. Robert Robertson, in spite of you being the one to control most of his decisions, he is his own character, as he has been alone for most of his career as Mecha Man, even admitting to Blonde Blazer that he is pulling himself into financial ruin, keeping the mech working.
So, how did you afford all that? You must have spent hundreds of thousands of
millions. So you'll understand when the check comes.
You're serious? Millions.
Yeah, I basically burned through my entire inheritance keeping it going. The last couple of years have just been duct tape and sheer determination.
Why did you do it?
Do what?
Sacrifice everything to be a superhero to the point of financial...
Ruin?
I was gonna say hardship, but ruin was the first word that came to mind, yeah.
His whole identity being tied to the suit is fitting, as in his apartment in episode 1 is completely empty with only nothing but like the broken mech. When joining SDN, the Z team expectedly treats him like a joke. They don't listen to him, they mock his name, and place a bet if he quits in a day. Yet, he would soon become their most valuable member to them when he decides to meet them all in a room face to face. You got all the choices that you can make, but the one I think most will end up choosing is choosing to see them as potential, describing them as phoenixes.
Unfortunately for you, it's a curse. Cause there isn't a thing in the universe that goes more wasted than potential. And despite how common it is, no one seems to forget. It's what they whisper when you leave the room. Oh, so-and-so had so much potential. It follows you forever. I'm here to help you lift the curse of potential by getting you to fucking do something with it. You're all part of the Phoenix program. Any of you know what a Phoenix is?
Ooh, city in Arizona.
Yeah, the sweltering ballsack of America.
Nah, if Florida's the dick, then Louisiana's gotta be the ball sack. Just, position.
The Phoenix,
Sorry.
according to legend, is a beautiful bird of prey that was so tired of its immortality, it tricked the sun god into dropping a spark on its nest to set it ablaze, burning it to shit. But instead of dying, the Phoenix emerged from ash, reborn. All of you in this room, like the Phoenix, have set this program ablaze with your bullshit. I'm pushing the dumpster fire away from the building while we figure out if you want to take this seriously. The Phoenix symbolizes redemption. It's what you're here for. It's what connects everyone in this room. To burn up who you were, to become who you were meant to be.
This is not only a nod to the fact that the program for these villains is called the Phoenix Program, but their second chance for them to be a hero is a lot like a phoenix. Even after hearing this, the team went into putting their best foot forward to try and actually be heroes. Further into the game, and the Z team will actually want to hang out with Robert, even leaving the choice on whether or not you want to reveal to them as Mecha Man or just simply Robert. Depending on the playthrough, you will see what kind of type your Robert will fall into, either becoming a true hero for being moral and selfless, an anti-hero for being morally gray and pragmatic, and being the everyman, being unpredictable and having to balance both. You would think that this would be a little bit different on how they all go about it. It actually doesn't affect Robert's character overall. Even with a lot of these choices that do end up happening, a lot of it does still make Robert feel like he is still his own character that the game has made to like only do one thing. Just some of the parts end up having to be shuffled around to kind of make sure that this ending at least works for the most part, which I think is the good benefit about Robert as a protagonist, because either one you get, it still feels inclined within his character. So no ending is like the most wrong ending you can get. Now I want to talk about Blonde Blazer and Invisigal, as they are both very much important in Robert's story. Not that the Z team isn't exactly important, I do love them, I love all the members. This is also where the game is doing a half attempt at having to do a romance subplot. I say half attempt because as much as most people want to date Malevola, Prism, Waterboy, Golem if you want, you only get Blonde Blazer and Invisigal. It doesn't sound like much, but you can romance them both. But this is also where that the game actually allows romance to be an actual option. As in, you don't actually have to be romantically interested in any of them to progress onto the story. You can leave them both as friends if you so choose. There might be some slight alterations on how the ending goes, but it doesn't affect it majorly, as it still gets the same result, just some of the parts get reshuffled.
What the?
That guy I threw, he landed on the roof, right? All good. Phew. Hi, I'm Blonde Blazer.
When first meeting Blonde Blazer, she seems formal, kind, and is a by-the-book sort of hero. Good to have a drink with, but always having to maintain a good appearance, which is fitting since she wants to be seen as her real self, the person behind the Blonde Blazer persona. In the end of episode 2, when it's revealed that Phenomenon is the boyfriend of Blonde Blazer, Phenomenon asks you if you would want to come to dinner with them. But there is a canon mini-comic that does show the dinner date and how they broke up. As we see in both from their POVs, Phenomenon wanted to date Blonde Blazer, believing that their future together would just be them continuing to fight crime as usual. Mandy, however, wanted to settle down as her real self, but Phenomenon couldn't understand as to why, and she ended up having to leave. Which is the explanation as to why Phenomenon, in most of the game when you recruit him, is left in a depressive state throughout the whole game. If you romance Blonde Blazer, it's revealed that during a dinner date that she set up, that her amulet on her chest is what gives her the powers, as she goes from the tall, muscular blonde to the small, normal brunette. This is where her struggles are apparent. She feels like that she isn't as respected as Mandy, but only is when she's Blonde Blazer. This reminds me a little bit of kind of like the Hulk, where the Hulk is a huge destructive green monster that is helpful on the side of the Avengers in important situations. But as Bruce Banner, even when he is smart on a scientific level, most of the Avengers, with exceptions for like Natasha, Tony, and maybe Thor, only see him as useful as the Hulk. I don't blame a lot of people if they didn't go forward with Blonde Blazer, as her route can be very easily missed sometimes. Plus, she only appears in most parts of the game to kind of drive forward most of the story or having other chances to go out with her. She's an overlooked character that I feel like that the game was kind of doing a little bit dirty to her. Not that she's a bad character by any means, she is absolutely a good one, but her route is very much often overlooked by the other one.
Are you serious?
Who locks a conference room? So, you two fuck or what?
Invisigal is by far the most popular character in Dispatch and is also controversial due to her character interactions with Robert. Your first time meeting with her is literally when she is invisible when you're changing your clothes, gets caught, and is very much not buying that Robert will do anything to make her a hero. She's immature, snarky, and self-destructive. The one member of the Z team that is the most defiant and isn't afraid to talk back to her teammates, Blazer, or Robert. In episode 3, where the Z team is at risk for one of them to be cut if they perform bad, Invisigal will outright not listen to you and ignore to be sent out on any missions. When you talk to her from the playground, the reason that she's doing this is so that Robert could just find the person to cut to make it easier. But Robert knows that she's making it easy on herself.
What's wrong with you?
There you go. One more strike against me. You gotta get rid of somebody, right? I'm making it easy for you.
No, you're quitting. You're not making it easy for me. You're making it easy for you.
You don't get it. Some people are born to be heroes. I'm not one of them. I tried. Just wasn't meant to be.
Meant to be? What are you talking about?
Blazer, Phenomena Man, they have hero powers. Strong out there for all to see.
Flying through the sky. Nothing to hide.
What's your point?
I have fucking villain powers. I can turn invisible and skulk in the shadows. My powers let me steal shit and watch famous people fuck. Being a villain is my fate. It's in the fucking stars. In the same way that blonde Blazer was always meant to be a hero.
It's clear that she is in need of a mentor, someone to help with her own self-worth, to show that being a hero is possible. If you choose to romance her, you will form a bond with her in the movies, after seeing her being a hero for catching a bad guy that she had previously trouble beating. She struggles in her own self-worth as established, but unlike with Blonde Blazer, who wanted her real self to be the person people see, Invisigal doesn't know what her identity is, yet craves for the respect of it by others, mainly from Robert. By this point, you're asking as to why I said that she's controversial, and that is due to her character behavior in the game, that there are times where she is actually interested in you, you also may not feel the same way. And this is where I have to mention a scene that happens at the beginning of episode 4, because I kid you not, it opens with her having to have a wet dream about Robert pounding her, only for her to wake up and realize that she had fallen for him, intends to hit him up in the bathroom and confess about the wet dream, only for it to be ruined by a fart joke by my goat Waterboy.
And you chose to be here.
Oh, sorry. I tried not to. I tried not to do that.
Don't worry about it, Waterboy.
That sound.
There's also another scene that also very much got to be a little bit controversial, and that happens in episode 7, where the Z team thinks it's best to cut her from the team. Depending on the choices that you have, you will still meet with her in the locker room, where I won't say because a big portion of the actual plot happens on this point, but how you choose, there is a chance you'll get the following scene of her going invisible, then kissing Robert, and then having the choice to lean in or push back from the kiss. If you couldn't put the pieces together, a lot of people think that her sexually harassing and trying to date him to fix her self-worth is like her way of trying to heal herself. And obviously a lot of people think it's wrong. And I agree to an extent. I do think that there's probably some better ways to handle most of her scenes. The game almost makes it feel like that they're just they have a favorite in mind over Blazer, which, as I said before, you could miss her route entirely just by playing the game as you probably would. I don't think that Invisigal is a perfect character by far. I do think there are some better ways to have communicate modes with it, but for what we get, I think it's more or less fine as the way that it is. I'll be honest, I really just wanted to have an excuse just to talk about Dispatch. I do think it's such a rare gem of a Telltale game that really made me feel I was able to relive some of the experiences of Minecraft story mode all over again in a better way. With the question of whether or not that we'll get a season 2 could be possible as it's in the air, but even if it just ended right over here, I honestly just be satisfied enough. If you haven't played Dispatch yet, please do. I really try to write this video to not like spoil so much of like what this game has to offer. Some of the events I did have to was explain because there are some minor events that happen to it. I left some of it out purposely so that you can go see it for yourself. But yeah, that's really all there is to this video. Like, comment, and subscribe to see more videos like these, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.